Hello, everyone. Welcome to Yogaphora Conversations. Welcome back. This is a space where creativity, spirituality, healing, and lived experience meet. I'm your host, Andrea Spadafora, licensed massage therapist, yoga instructor, and Italian language interpreter, tutor, and translator at Yogaphora LLC in Brentwood, Missouri. Today, we're recording from the Center for Spiritual Living in Creve Coeur, a place devoted to consciousness, creativity, and the unfolding of human potential. My guest today is the remarkable Brenda A. Fraser, Mosaic artist, storyteller, author, speaker, fundraiser, and creative force whose work transforms broken and forgotten pieces into profound visual prayers of wholeness. Brenda's mosaics are created from vintage jewelry, objects that once held memory, love, and story, and through what she calls intentional art. Those pieces are reassembled into something new, healing, meaning, and beauty. Her journey into art was not linear. It was born from loss, from a life-altering car accident that took her mother and reshaped Brenda's understanding of purpose, time, and calling. Rather than allowing tragedy to define her, she chose to let it initiate her. Today, her work is collected across the country, in the US, exhibited widely and rooted in service, including scholarships for women returning to school, and a deep reverence for mothers, grandmothers, earth, and spirit. This conversation is not about rushing or performance. It's about listening to the quiet wisdom behind the art, the stories behind the materials, and the soul behind the creator. Brenda, I'm deeply grateful that we are here today.
Well, thank you so much.
Welcome to Yogaphora.
It's an honor.
I
appreciate you.
All right, so let's get started. We have a long conversation here. This is my long form interview format. So, and I know you love to talk, so
It'll be easy.
it will be very easy. So, first of all, where are you from?
Well, that's an interesting question because I was born in one place but raised in another place. So I consider myself from New England, from New Hampshire. Although I was born in Indiana, which is just north of us or east of us here in St. Louis. Spent most of my professional career on the East Coast and then spent 6 years in Colorado. And I've been in Missouri now for 21 years. So I guess where I'm from is now here.
So when you moved here 21 years ago, that's when you actually joined this congregation.
That's correct.
Center for Spiritual Living.
Yes.
Interesting.
I started attending here before even moving.
Oh, okay.
In fact, this was a deciding factor. I wouldn't have moved to St. Louis had there not been a Center for Spiritual Living.
So even before then, you already kind of belong to the spiritual framework of Ernest Holmes and Science of Mind.
Yes, I discovered it in Denver in 2004. It actually all started with the magazine. There's a magazine called Science of Mind. And a friend of mine kept giving me the magazines. And then Speaker Talks, that back then was on cassettes. And she would give me cassette talks recorded from the Mile High Center, and they were so profound. And that caught my attention. It took about a year of being exposed to those magazines and tapes before I actually had the courage to step into the facility because I knew it would challenge my old thinking.
Yes, wonderful. And so these conversations are all about rediscovering ourselves and how we can make the world a better place through Science of Mind and philosophy. And so I think that Science of Mind is a wonderful framework. So tell me about, speaking about your origins and, again, your own awakening, when you look back, what feels like the first moment your creative soul spoke to you?
Well, that's interesting because I never thought of myself as having any creativity. In fact, I used to say I had no artistic talent. I had a sister who could paint a beautiful monument in Washington, D.C. at age 11. And so because she was gifted from birth, I didn't think that I had any talent. And I worked in offices all my life, professional offices. And it was from losing my mother in a car crash that her rosary broke in her purse. And I had that for 10 years, didn't know how to fix it. And actually went to a workshop here in St. Louis with a man who had taught Wayne Dyer the Aha meditation. And he was selling mala beads. And instead of spending the $40 or $50, I thought, I should be able to make that. It's just 108 beads on string, but I never knew how to finish it off, like the tools. And so I went home and I said to my partner, I want to, make mala beads, and can you help me finish this? And yes, I can. And then I said, well, can you fix my mother's broken rosary? So 2 sacred objects. I think that was important because things started really shifting. Like she fixed the rosary. It was missing 1 bead symbolically, and we made the mala beads. Well, then we started making jewelry. And she was a police officer, and I was an event planner. So that was the most radical change for both of us, to sit still and be quiet.
Sure. and acquire a new skill. Be open to the acquirement of a new skill, which is wonderful.
And connecting to the stones.
Yes.
And we had read and heard that stones have energy. And that seemed crazy to both of us at that time. We were very, is it right brain? Whatever. We weren't open to the meaning of things and the meaning of, and the energy contained in things like stones and found objects from the earth. And so we started making jewelry. We found it was very calming and peaceful. We found it was meditative. And so from making the jewelry, we had a business that we called Butterfly and Moon, which I adopted the butterfly as one of my spirit symbols for my mother, the blue butterfly. Patrice's nickname was Moon, so Butterfly and Moon was born. And we made jewelry for 10 years and then eventually opened a store.
Cool. That's such a great story. Yeah, and in energy work, or whoever is interested in learning how the subtle energy works, we do believe that everything, including inanimate objects, carry energy frequency within it. Everything vibrates at a frequency. It could be microwave, radio waves, light waves, but everything, every time we are in the presence of something great, for example, if we are in the presence of a waterfall or a giant mountain, a mountain peak, we're drawn automatically to an energy field that is higher than us. Right? So before art became central in your life, how would you describe the version of yourself you were living as then? Before art became the form through which spirit expressed itself in your life, how did you understand your identity?
Radically different than now. I'll just say that. I lived a very fast-paced life. I was in what they say, the rat race. I was in the rat race in Washington, D.C. I was very much career-driven. I was very much driven by who I knew, who I could meet, people, what their connections were, what their financial worth was. I was in fundraising, so I was always looking for people that could fund whatever organization I was working for. And after the car crash, those people were not the people that came and helped me.
That
were not there. And I had a big awakening of the people I had overlooked, the volunteers, the people that were behind the scenes, the people that don't seek acknowledgement or glory. They were the people that had the bigger hearts, the bigger souls, that were willing to help me, because I actually was a person that never thought I needed any help. I was very self-reliant. I grew up during the women's movement. Hear me roar, I can do anything. And then you realize you hit a brick wall. You can't do everything by yourself, especially if you're, in a wheelchair for 2 months. And so those women showed up at my house and brought food and helped with cleaning. And it was just a huge transformation. Out of that tragedy, so many transformations happened. Spiritually, like that was my big spiritual wake up.
Now, let me ask you a very personal question. So how did the loss of your mother reshape your relationship with time and meaning? You said, you just said that when the time you were in DC, you were immersed into this chasing the dollar, time is money, which is very, in my opinion, as a transplant from Italy. I can tell that this is the general level of consciousness, chasing the next acquisition of material possessions, right?
And it's just like the metaphor, if you chase the butterfly, it will fly away, but if you sit still, it will land on you. And so the big awakening was, you mentioned time. So when I was younger, and I think this is true for people wherever they live around the world, you think you have unlimited time on earth, and you don't think about your own mortality. So losing my mother, beautiful sunny day, you wake up, everything's great, you're going to go get a contract re-signed for a client at Georgetown University, and I was ignoring her. I was not in tune spiritually or energetically with where she was. And I believe she had a premonition that her life was going to end soon because she was very quiet, very retrospective, very different than her normal. Like I said, what do you want for breakfast? And she said, I'm fine. What do you want to do tonight? I'll be fine. Worry about yourself. Like she was very at peace with her inevitable death, even though neither one of us could have predicted that car crash. But for me, she gave me her watch a minute or two before the car crash. I had forgotten mine that day, and she gave me her watch. And so I got out of the hospital, and they returned this watch to me, and I thought, that's not my watch. And I was such a snob. It's a Timex. I would wear a cheap watch. And then I realized, well, it was like the gift of time. And she gave me the gift of time to not waste time and to value time as a precious gift.
Yes.
But listening to Eckhart Tolle on The Power of Now, on a cassette probably back then, he said, one of the things he said was time is a man-made construct, and we are attached to time to the point that we're disconnected from source, and we have to release time to be connected to our source. So then I just started crying because it wasn't then my story. It was her story of letting go of time. Physical time to cross over, and it made perfect sense, and it all just sort of all the puzzle pieces fell into place.
Sure, that's very interesting that your mom, like you said, was already prepared of letting go of her life on earth.
She was prepared
spiritually,
and she had talked about it. She talked about heaven 2 days before the crash. She said she was ready. She saw it like a party, like a party in the sky that she was late to get to this party. I mean, her whole family had gone except for one sister. And I said, well, that's going to be a long time. Like she had just retired. I said, it's going to be a long time before that happens. And then she said prophetically, if you ever need to get me a message, you have your angel. Talk to my angel. I'm like, angels. I don't even think, at that time, I didn't even believe in angels. I didn't even think I had an angel. And we named our angels. And so she said, you have your angel. Talk to my angel. If anything ever happens. And then 2 days later, she's gone. I mean, that is very interesting.
Very. Thank you for sharing. So, let's reconnecting to the concept of, chasing the dollar and essentially securing the certainty of a paycheck. You were in DC. You were trying to close big deals, I assume, right?
Big deals that I didn't get paid on. I just got paid a salary. I didn't get a commission.
Right. Yeah. But essentially, you were chasing the rabbit of fulfillment on a track of achievement.
Yes. And external identification.
Like many of us do, associating self-worth with net worth. Right. And then all of a sudden, you chose art. Not all of a sudden. There was a process that brought you to there. So was there fear in choosing art? And what did you risk by saying yes to art? So leaving the certainty for a big deal of uncertainty.
This is a great question because for a few years in the beginning, when we were making the jewelry, I had one foot in the old world, which was my professional career as a fundraiser and a very good fundraiser. I raised over $1 million for the Holocaust Museum and for many organizations. I had raised so much money and I taught people how to raise money, and it was my whole identity, and I was going to write a book about fundraising. And so I was in that world, and then I had my other foot in this other world with the stones and the jewelry and ethnic beads from around the world, and the jewelry brought joy. Like when we were making jewelry, to make a piece for somebody and to see them light up and to know that they were going to wear it, that was such a shift. Then the satisfaction I got from, you can raise a ton of money for any organization and they go, great job. Now we need another 100,000 by next month, or great job. What's the next thing? Right. There's never satisfaction. It's just this, endless feeding the monster of more money, whether it's nonprofit or for profit. Really, they're motivated by the same thing. They both need money to run.
Yes.
And so money's not bad or good. It's just a tool. It's just like gasoline in a car. It's just a tool to get you from place A to place B. But for me, the personal satisfaction of connecting to one person and making something that would bring them so much joy. The only issue with the jewelry making was that I did the color and the design, which is what I love color. Yeah. I love design. but I never really mastered the skill with the tools. And I don't really like tools personally. I was raised in a very traditional way as a really feminine woman that doesn't work with tools. So when I learned to make the shift from the jewelry making to the jewelry deconstructing,
yes,
and pulling it apart and seeing what the individual pieces are in a certain necklace or a vintage earring or something, I could do all of that process from conception to creation to, the end result by myself without the need of another person. And so that was where I then went off and did my own thing.
That's great. So going back to the concept of how selling art is a little uncertain, you may create a beautiful piece, as we can see here, and we will talk about that.
Yeah.
But selling art requires a certain level of salesmanship, right? It's an act of not manipulation, but persuasion that the public can recognize the value of your art and pay money for it, and also distinguish yourself among billions of other people that do similar work.
I would say I believed that until last September. I believed that because I felt that, my background was fundraising, sales, marketing.
Yes.
And I felt that I had to elaborate. And at the St. Louis Art Fair, which I just got accepted as an emerging artist,
congrats.
The artists there sit in a chair across the street from their booth. They're not inside their booth. They're not even hardly talking to people. They wait to see when a person connects to a piece of art, emotionally or spiritually, and then they'll go over and approach them.
That's right.
Where I was approaching everybody and talking to everybody because hey, I want to connect with people. I don't care. And I used to always say this when we had the store. I don't care if they buy something or not. I want a meaningful relationship that they're going to remember. That is a store on Main Street that I talked about death or life or loss. They had, they would stay in my store for like an hour talking, and they might not make a purchase that day, but they would come back.
Yes.
They would remember us.
My good friend Anne has a beautiful handbag business. She makes her own handmade bags. It's called Any Sunshine LLC. Check her out.
All right.
And so I helped her a little bit at the Christmas on the Hill night market.
Nice.
So she set up her booth, and she paid for the booth.
Yeah.
And as we were there, I was noticing exactly what you said. There were this audience, this big traffic of people, foot traffic.
Yeah.
And I equated them with as if there were fish nibbling on the pieces that she created, nibbling and finally, asking questions if interested. So in other words, the selling wasn't forced. It was coming from a place of power.
Well, I used to do shows like that, and I don't do those shows anymore. I don't like them because a lot of the bigger shows, people are looking for a deal, and women tend to undervalue their work. Women will underprice their work, and they will kill me. Oh, because I love doing it. Why should I charge? I'm like, do you ever talk to a man that says that? No. If you made something and you put your time and energy into it and labor, you definitely should be charging. Don't give your work away ever. And I really have coached a lot of women artists about that. But for me, there's going to be something that speaks to them. Everyone has a place of pain inside of them. They will not automatically talk about that place of pain. But if they look at something and they say, I love a fleur-de-lis, that's the French symbol. My mother was French. Now, this is true for me personally. And it's one of the things I love about St. Louis because it had a lot of French history here. And they have the fleur-de-lis on their flag. This is the St. Louis flag, colors and design. And this was at the Missouri History Museum on their wall. And when you walk into their gift shop, they have a full wall with this graphic. And I saw the graphic and I thought, I could make that. Because I had already made this shape before. This is a famous shape.
It is a famous shape. In fact, when you go to New York, there's like a giant shape just like that with the same design.
The original artist is Robert Indiana. From Indiana. And he has a giant one of that sculpture that's probably 15 feet, 20 feet. I don't know how big it is.
Wow.
So you go to Indianapolis, which is where I was born, you see this everywhere. But then when I saw it at the gift shop there at the Missouri History Museum, in these colors, it's red, white, and blue with a pop of yellow. And I thought, how am I going to make that circle? Like, there's no jewelry I have that's a big yellow circle. It's a jar lid. It's a mason jar lid. But I also put symbols of Missouri, the baseball, we're big with the Cardinals, and voting, and the hot air balloon race that we have, and the French symbols and things.
Wow.
So
you're so talented, Brenda.
Well, I appreciate that. It's so fulfilling. And what you said about it may not, this has been on display at the museum. It's been in art shows. It hasn't sold yet, but it will sell to someone who will love this because they love St. Louis. Like they will just gravitate. Like when the right person comes along, it's just like we say, the teacher appears, like you're a teacher. A teacher appears when the student's ready. Like I have a lot to learn from you, and maybe you have something to learn from me.
Absolutely.
There are no accidents in the world. Like there's something called divine synchronicity.
Yes.
And you meet the strategic synchronicity. There's a book with that title, and that book really opened my eyes. That you can be the lighthouse on the beach, and the right boats will be drawn to you. Instead of running up and down the beach trying to get every boat to your light, which they're going to all crash because you can't be moving your light back and forth. So it's like, for me, I think as an artist is to pick the medium and stay with it.
Yes.
Because I was a person early in my career that I tried a lot of different things, but then you don't become proficient at one thing. And I also paint, and I also do mixed media in other forms. And I am going to continue to learn and explore different forms. But this speaks to me so deeply.
So can I add something to what you're saying? You know, my spiritual mentor, Dr. David R. Hawkins, he would say that everything comes about spontaneously. Even the selling of this art piece will come about spontaneously as potentiality becoming an actuality. When the local conditions are right, you know, the seed becomes a tree, etc. So everything arises spontaneously by virtue of divine grace, what he defines as by virtue of that which it is.
I love that. I love that. And that's, you know, I did a 2-day art show last year, and Saturday, a lot of people came and looked, and they were buying little things, but they were looking at my art, and they came back the next day. And so Sunday, I had a lot of sales, and this one lady showed up, and it turns out she'd been following me for like 15 years on social media, and she showed up and bought 4 pieces. She said, I've been following you. I couldn't wait to get here, and I bought this for my daughter and this for me, and it was her wedding anniversary, and it was all these things. And so I couldn't have pre-predicted that. And I didn't force that. It just sort of spontaneously happened.
Spontaneous, that's place of power. And we will talk more about this later in the interview. So first of all, at what moment did art stop being a hobby and became a calling for you?
That's another good question. I would say after COVID. Well, you know, initially when we opened the store, you know, the art became a business, and it kind of took the fun out of it, because then you're worried about staffing and, you know, being there on your feet for
overheads, of course.
Overhead and standing there, and, you know, you're dependent on tourism. And then when tourism dried up at the beginning of COVID, you know, our town where the store was located in historic St. Charles, they did not close the town, close the businesses. So some businesses stayed open, but there were no people. So we knew the writing was on the wall. And we responded quickly. We just shut the doors. We didn't have a sale. And, you know, it was very hard. It was a loss, like a grief, like someone had died, because I enjoyed that environment, and I enjoyed the people that came, that were attracted to our mission and came to our store. And I knew I was going to miss that human interaction. Right. And then suddenly, you know, you're in your basement creating art. And I had learned how to do this prior to COVID, but I never had the time. Right. No time. So then suddenly I have time. I'm going to make a bunch of art. And then by the end of that year, I said, I have all this art. I need to get it into galleries. So I got it into my first juried show, which, you know, it's just every little step of the process is validation, you know. And I think especially when you're changing your career or changing your whole life, really. I mean, my whole life turned upside down. Again, like there have been points in my life where there was huge upheaval, and you can be focused on what you're losing, or you can be focused on, well, how can I reinvent myself to meet these new conditions? Yes. Which you've had to do, just coming from another country. Oh, yeah. Which is so monumental. There are people in our state of Missouri that haven't even traveled out of our state, but, you know, I always tell people travel because you're going to see, your worldview will change. But to actually move, I've moved across the country several times, but to move across the ocean, like I admire that so much because it takes so much courage and self-confidence and fortitude to put yourself in a whole new place.
Yeah, but to go back to your business, you said you had to shut down because of COVID. Yeah, as many other businesses had to do. But what's interesting is that once you've created the business in a metaphysical form, what I mean is, it all starts from a thought, right? And then you develop the name of your business, which is Butterfly.
Yeah. So the business was Butterfly Moon, and I never wanted to sort of get rid of that title. A lot of people like that. I go by Brenda Fraser Mosaic Art now, and that was even a hard decision to just self-identify and then own it, like own the art, own the concept, because it is mine, and and it's also another blossoming, another blooming kind of thing.
But what I was trying to say is that the essence of your work, the essence of you, starts in the non-physical.
Yes.
Now, you can manifest it into the physical by acquiring a brick and mortar shop, right? And you can display, people can drive to you, you have a storefront and everything. But the essence of you, you carry it with you wherever you go. Right. That's the point I was trying to make. And this is the reason why you can sell this artwork anywhere.
That's right.
Not just in one specific location.
I see that I'm liberated now because I do want to travel. And I have shown my work throughout the country, but I want to go international.
Yeah.
Italy is in my top 3.
Oh, I'd be happy to help.
And then a residency in France. So I have my sights on Europe and maybe eventually Bali. But
now, let's move into your intentional art and process. So what does intentional art mean in your body, not just in words?
So intentional art, for example, this piece. So this is a teaching symbol. I call it Wholeness.
Yes.
And it reflects the philosophy of science of mind, but it also reflects all the world religions, because the man that started Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes, he read all the world religions and found the common threads. And so it was requested that it be in rainbow colors. And each color represents something. Each stone represents and symbols, so there's religious symbols, and there's also playful symbols like the domino, because the person that had been here at one point liked to play dominoes, but butterfly for transformation. And then there's other artist pieces within art, which is that fused glass piece, which was designed by an artist as a giant pendant. Intentional art for me means I'm intentionally choosing. It takes as much time, or almost as much time, choosing what's going to go on a piece as it does to actually make it.
Okay.
I mean, I'll spend hours hunting for the symbols.
Yes.
And so someone orders a piece, for example, someone just ordered the word love, and it's in a different shape. It's more italic letters. And they told me about their spouse, and they told me the things they loved, and they told me, I don't want to disclose because this person hasn't received it yet. They're going to receive it for Valentine's Day. But they told me about the person and the things they love. And then I go look for those charms. So I intentionally try to tell the story in symbols.
Right.
And colors.
And what is the actual process? Once you have had a broad idea of your creation, you first draw it on a piece of paper? No?
Well, initially I wasn't doing any pre-planning. Like the person I was taught by did not do pre-planning. And I actually did not like her work eventually because of that, because it was all random. And I was more intentional. So I do a lot of pre-planning. So first is the selection. Sometimes I have to go shopping or hunting for certain, like right now I'm looking for a canoe. Sometimes I've put on Facebook, I need a symbol that the military wore during Vietnam. Now that's a very specific, somebody had served in Vietnam. And believe it or not, somebody answered the call and had that pin and sent it to me. I mean, I couldn't believe it. So this piece is on Africa, the continent of Africa. So I grew up with a sister who had lived in Ghana for temporary. Ghana's over here. And she used to bring back the batik fabric and the beads and the mask. This is a mask, and the wood carvings. So I was raised with this sister who would bring us back all these cultural artifacts from Ghana. And I grew up wanting to go there. So I
Mhm.
did, in fact, raise the money in 2013 and went by myself in
Wow.
2014. Very scary.
That's-
Don't recommend it. Don't go overseas by
See,
yourself.
you express courage in your own way, Brenda.
Oh, yeah, I do. But
Yes.
I think a man can travel safely easier than a woman can. But anyway,
Okay.
so I found a program where they were working with the local women with their native art and helping bringing that to a fair trade business.
Uh-huh.
So I went there. I taught these women computer skills
Mm-hmm.
and new designs. I designed some jewelry. They didn't know anything about pendants or long. They know chunky and heavy. And anyway, this is in a way commemorating my trip to Africa and also giving honor. It's a continent that has the origins of civilization. So there's Egyptian symbols here and the third eye.
Fabulous.
And then there's also the animals there's a lot of animals in here, including this hartebeest, antelope, and a rhinoceros. There's so many animals in here. Kids love my artwork because they
That's
love
amazing.
to look and find the things. I will say, see if you can find, this is a coin from South Africa.
Mhm.
This is a bead made out of cow bone
Mhm.
that we used to make jewelry out of this bead, actually. And then the queen, the women are honored as queens. And
Yes.
then the colors.
Yes.
And then these beads are wood. This was from a necklace that was an African-made necklace. And then there's a handmade glass bead in here, which is where in Ghana, where I went, was the one specific area that they made beads out of recycled glass. Now, normally they paint them with little polka dots, that little green one.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So anyway, this is all very intentional. And now this isn't for everybody.
Sure.
Someone maybe doesn't care one hoot about Africa. But there are other people that maybe have moved here from Africa that will be like, oh, this is my motherland. I must have this. So,
but my question was, and is, I'm sorry, is, the creative process.
Yeah.
When you start a new project, do you already see the finished product in your mind?
A little bit.
Or it's just like it goes along the way, and like you have to...
Well, first it's the color. What is going to be the color palette?
Okay.
Just like a painter. A painter will choose the color palette for that painting.
Mm-hmm.
And so first it's the color. So I knew I wanted to do the colors of the African flag.
Yes.
And then it's the outline.
Uh-huh.
So I choose what beads in terms of size.
Mm-hmm.
Is it going to be a small bead or a bigger bead that's going to outline the letter, just to give it definition.
Yes.
And then what are the focal pieces? What are this queen is the lion. These are main focal pieces that draw your eye to these larger pieces. And then what's going to fill in? I fill in every little teeny inch, every little teeny speck. That's the hardest part, is the final stage. I walk away, I come back, and I'm like, oh, there's an opening. I got to fill that.
Yes.
And it drives me mad because I have to get that in there a little. But
I know, it seems like...
But I also have to allow a lot of room and actually constantly be thinking that I have to just be the vessel.
Mm-hmm. That's the beauty.
For spiritual creative energy to come from source through me.
Yes.
I will look at something and the next day go, I can't believe I made that. I still look at this piece going, I can't believe I made that. And it's because it's not from me.
Right.
It's from source.
Correct.
And when you first asked me, where are you from? I used to answer that question, I'm from heaven. Because I believe we're all from source.
Yes.
And we came into physical form, and we're going to go out and return to our spiritual entity. Like my mother is still a spiritual, she's still guiding me. She's still one of my creative muses. And I feel so close to my mother. When I work with jewelry, she would have worn giant clip earrings, in the 70s and 80s, or, a brooch pin. And these ladies, this jewelry back, especially like the 50s, 60s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, that time period, jewelry was so important to women. Like, as a way to express themselves. They were in traditional marriages.
Yeah.
They weren't allowed to work. They weren't allowed to create anything that had their identity. Their identity was kind of on a low energy level. And so their jewelry was something that maybe somebody gave them, a son would give to his mother, a special piece for Mother's Day.
Yes.
And she would wear that, and she would feel connected to her son and feel so special.
Yes.
Sorry, I just kept touching the microphone.
Oh, it's all good.
I kept thinking it was a pin. But she would treasure that, and the son might go off to war and might move away, but she would have that little piece of his love with her.
Right.
You know?
Wonderful. You touched it. One of the topics that I love to talk about, and that is the subject of relationships. You mentioned some women in a marriage, for example, and you also mentioned Source and God, right? So the way that I like to think when I approach a relationship is that there is no ownership. When somebody asks me, oh, this is my boyfriend, this is my girlfriend, this is my wife, this is my husband, that phrase implies ownership, when in reality, we're nobody's property other than God's property.
That's right.
Do you agree with that?
Yes, you're so evolved. I wish all men thought the way you think, because it's so true. And I think individually, whether men or women, we have to learn to be responsible for our own happiness, and whether it's in a marriage or whatever, we have to take responsibility. For example, if someone doesn't want to go do something, you can sit at home and be mad. They don't want to go do the theater. Or you can just go buy a ticket and find someone to go with you, or go alone.
Yes.
I have a friend who's going through a big transformation right now. And she said, I just went to the Fox Theater by myself. And I was like, good.
That's so great. Empowering. Yes.
So empowering. And like going to Africa, this is a perfect example. I always knew I wanted to go to Africa. And I always knew I cannot die without going to Africa. Like it's on my bucket list. And I also know that any of us could be gone at any time, on any day, having survived that car crash. So I put it in my mind, I'm going to Africa. Guess what? It was the height of Ebola. Everyone's telling me not to go, including my sister that lived there. My partner didn't want to go, and no friends wanted to go. And I'm like, okay, well, I want to go, so I've got to figure this out. So I had a GoFundMe page. I sold African jewelry. I raised all my money to go. I had to pay for my airfare. I had to pay a program fee. I had very little knowledge of the culture. I had very little knowledge of what I was walking into in terms of no access to phones, internet, no vehicle, middle of nowhere, no lights, really primitive setting.
Yes.
Okay, so all your fears come up, and you just have to tackle them one at a time with educating. And I found out there was a Ghanaian Cultural Society in St. Louis.
Oh, wow.
So I got to go and try the food and talk to people from that country and say, tell me more about your, and I got to learn a little bit about the culture before going there. But it was so rewarding that I went. And something bad did happen at the end of my experience there. But that is not going to define that trip. Like, I was physically attacked by 3 men, tied up, and almost raped. Yes, and they stole everything. They stole all my jewelry. They stole all my beads that I bought at the market. They stole my special ring. They had me tied up, gagged, thrown on the floor. A man sat on me. He wanted to rape me, and the other guy said,
horrible.
No, let's go. And you know what? I don't fault those men that did that, because A, they had been drinking. There had been a festival, much like Mardi Gras. B, they're desperately poor. What they stole probably equals over a year's salary, at least. I mean, hourly wages is $2, if you're lucky to even have a job. So, driven by poverty, driven by alcohol, driven by whatever. So I don't fault them. I fault a little bit the organization, but
in reality, if this happened in the U.S., that would have been a life imprisonment or a death penalty. So each country has different.
Justice there is served out. If they find out who did this, they would take justice into their own hands.
Right.
And it's not people from that village. Like it's not people. I believe that crime could have happened anywhere, and in fact, crime does happen anywhere.
It does.
And so I don't want to focus on that. I want to focus on the culture. The culture is a beautiful culture.
Beautiful,
and and the miracle of that story is that a woman that I connected with found me 3 years later through Facebook. She calls me mother. She lost her mother. She calls me mother, and I've sent her money for school. And she got out of poverty. She got her degree, 2-year degree. She left the village, went to the capital city, and has her own apartment and has her own job. So you know what?
Wonderful.
I cannot fix poverty or save all the orphans or the terrible waste, trash, and everything. That there's so many problems there. It's overwhelming. But if you can help one person,
Yes.
right? In
It's
your
very
work,
inspiring. Yes.
right? In your work, you can't give massage that will help everybody in this
No.
planet. But if you change one person's life and open them up to your philosophy,
Yes.
with this philosophy,
Yes. That's
you've
great.
made the difference
Absolutely.
of your work, of why you were sent here.
Thank you. I was going to say, but one thing that I realized about, your willingness to explore in a different country and go by yourself as a woman, that directly takes me to the concept of courage. And that can be so empowering for so many people. Most people live day to day within the confines of their cities or towns. They live a very linear, predictable life, paycheck to paycheck. And being trapped by their own fears, not knowing that they're so empowered if they would acquire the education and the know-how and reaching out for help and reaching out to people like you.
Yeah. Well, I think, I used to be sort of maybe a little judgmental about people that chose that path. That's fine. Some people, that's all they want. That's fine. But for the rest of us that want to learn and continue to grow and explore and see this amazing planet that God created and meet people from various cultures and learn the history. I mean, the history in Europe is, is centuries. And, the buildings are centuries. And, we have things here that are 100 years old and people go, oh, it's 100 years old. It's just, I think having a worldview is so important. And
what it matters really is enjoying the here and now moment.
Yeah.
So let me ask you some more questions because I have got so many. So first of all, have you ever felt guided by something beyond your conscious mind while working? And what kind of emotions tend to surface while you do that?
Well, definitely I'm guided. I put on music, soft music, sometimes spiritual music. I like incense or pinyon pine. I want to wake up all my senses. So from audio with music, the smell with the pinyon pine reminds me of the Southwest, which I love. The Southwest, it's so beautiful and open and airy. And then I think, like, if it's a piece that someone has ordered, I try to kind of meditate a little bit and put intention into the piece where, I want to be an open vessel, an open channel. So I have to get my thinking mind, my busy monkey mind out of the way.
Totally agree.
I might just sit and stare outside at a tree. I have a lot of plants in my art studio, and I have sliding glass doors that face a wooded area. So that will ground me literally to Mother Earth, as you mentioned, and so I know I'm guided because it doesn't come from me. And so, I might have a general idea where things are going to go, but then, I might try it out. And so I place it and, that just doesn't feel right. And then I change it. So, but I have to work quickly because the adhesive I work with dries very quickly, which I like, but it's like you're making a commitment. That's also like, you just have to make a decision. But I allow intuition to guide me.
So how much emotion goes into the process? For example, is there a conversation happening between grief, which is a powerful emotion? Humans are emotionally driven beings, right? We do things out of our emotions, or we don't do things out of emotions. Everything is understanding the psychology behind everybody's actions. So is there a conversation happening between grief and beauty in your work?
I love that question. Your questions are so beautiful and so thoughtful and so spiritually guided. I almost makes me cry because you are an awakened being, and it's rare to meet someone who is an awakened being. And I'm going to cry. I can't look at you.
Don't worry about it.
But anyway,
the
emotions with the piece, it depends on who the piece is for, or if I have a story that I know of. For example, I'll talk about the octopus.
Sure.
Someone said, you should make an octopus. I'm like, I don't like octopus. They're kind of creepy with all their little legs. And they said, well, watch this documentary called My Octopus Teacher. It won Best Documentary for the year. It's about a man who was virtually on the edge of suicide, very depressed, and he goes out scuba diving and he meets an octopus. And they develop this relationship where every day he goes down there, this octopus comes to him, this female octopus, and they have a bonding, and it actually heals his grief and pulls him out of. So after knowing that story, well, then of course I wanted to make an octopus. So I made one, and I thought, you know what, this may never sell. I don't care. I'm making this piece. And my friend had this octopus garden. She was a very eclectic artist. And so I used shells. I used shark's teeth. I used hematite. Well, anyway, someone saw that. Well, it did sell, but someone saw a picture of it, and they wanted one in memory of their grandmother, who worked for the Admiral of the Navy, the longest-serving Admiral of the Navy, 63 years, Admiral Rickoff. And this woman worked at a time when women didn't have jobs in the 30s and 40s. She was a grandmother. She sewed all the family's clothing. They had a tin of all her buttons. They said, can you use this? Here, have this tin. And at first I was like, I don't use buttons. I use jewelry. But they wanted me to use these buttons. And I thought, okay, I'll try that. Whatever they want, I'm going to try to accommodate. So I used those buttons, and I layered the piece, and I put a picture of the grandmother under a locket on the head of the octopus. Oh my God, they love this piece so much. Then they wanted an anchor for their sibling, and then some other piece. Anyway, the point of the story was making the piece and learning about this woman. And then I read about this admiral, and she had all these buttons that are, the brass buttons that the military wear with eagles on them. I mean, I was very humbled because I don't want to screw up their special piece. And also, when they give me pieces that have rhinestones, you have to be able to cut that piece so it doesn't fall apart. And a lot of amateurs think, I can make that. I'm going to go out and make a Christmas tree. And I said, please don't make a Christmas tree. That's like an Elvis painting to me. But they damage the piece because they don't know how to cut it. And then the stones fall out. Those old pieces, the stones fall out easily. But so I'm very humbled when somebody says, this was my mother's jewelry, or this was my grandmother's stuff, because that is like all they have left of her is these buttons, right?
Yes.
So, but I made them a piece that they'll have forever. And when they die, their kids will get it. And so it becomes generational art.
Yes.
And because the kid might not, especially if it's a boy, they're not going to be wearing all that jewelry probably. So it's a way for the jewelry to be utilized and to remember their loved one.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. It's a great story. So, like I said, emotions are kind of universal, that let us realize the oneness in things. Part of the framework of science of mind is transcending the illusion of separateness.
Yes.
Right? Everything is globally interconnected. Like, I am from Italy. I was born and raised in Italy. Wow. You are from the United States. Yeah. We share the same biology, right? But also we share the same humanness. Yes. We're driven by this roller coaster or spectrum of emotions, going from the bottom, apathy, all the way up to joy, unconditional love, etc. Yeah. This is what Dr. Hawkins describes in his map of consciousness, which I have studied dearly and profoundly, and has shaped the man who I am today. So I'm very grateful for that. And this is why, my question was very specific on how you transfer emotions into a piece of art. Okay. While you do that, as you're creating something, is there emotionality expressed into the physicality of an object? Yeah,
I would say through the color and through the symbols. I always want to put a heart on there. A lot of times I'll put an angel. I always put a butterfly because that's my symbol. So there's symbols on there that they may not even realize I put on there that mean something to me, like the butterfly, which symbolizes transformation. Or the type of stone. There are stones that are for grounding energy, carnelian and the root chakra, that line up with the chakras. And I don't even really know that much about it, except to know.
You feel it, yes, which is important.
And purple is a royal color, and there are certain colors used in this, for example, the suffrage flag, purple, yellow, and white, which was the movement to get women the right to vote. And so those colors, especially purple, there's certain colors that mean so much. And in Africa, colors are very important too, in the fabric that they make, the batik fabric. So I would say the motion comes through the colors and the choice of shapes. Like sometimes with a masculine piece, like this piece I'm making now is for man, I might use a men's watch band, which are wider and thicker than a woman's watch band, which is, more delicate, and I'll put sort of heavier, chunkier thing. It just depends. But, I've had some unusual requests. I had someone request a pelican, and I wasn't even sure I could ever get the shape, but that's his spirit animal. And I had to research pictures of pelicans. I'm like, what do pelicans even look like? What colors are they? And, I put coral on the beak and grays and blacks. And, I like contrast of color. I like sometimes like this yellow puffs. Sometimes I'll put just a little bit of yellow, like after I've done the piece. I did a piece, it was another love piece, and it was gray, white, black, and a little yellow. And it was at the time of the George Floyd murder. And I was listening to the funeral and what they were saying about him as a man and as an uncle. And this young girl said, he was my uncle and he would carry me on his shoulders. He was my Superman. She said that. And that was a different portrayal than what you saw in the media about this man who maybe resisted arrest, or maybe he had drugs, whatever they were trying to say about him, he should not have been murdered, period. And so I was listening to this funeral, this eulogy, and I had one Superman symbol on somebody else on a personal mosaic, and I lifted it off and put it on this one. But I also had a crossroads decision to make, whether to put his initials on there. I had a gun, charm, and I was going to show this piece at a winery out in the rural area of Missouri. And I censored myself for 24 hours. I thought, I can't really say what I want to say on this piece. And then the next day I thought, nope, it's my piece, it's my art. And if I can't express my grief and my emotion over this tragedy of this person getting murdered by police, then why am I doing art?
Right. But ultimately, your ultimate motivation is love, right?
Yeah.
It is an expression of love.
Yes.
Love is the natural state.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And love was, I called it love matters.
Love matters.
Because everyone's saying Black Lives Matters. Yes, that's true. Love matters. And I almost didn't even want to sell this piece. I wanted to give it to a museum or something. This piece meant so much to me. Well, I did put it in a gallery and it did sell. And I wish I knew who got it, because it probably spoke to them on some deep level.
So the example of the gun, for example, put into one of your art pieces, the gun itself is a symbol. It's a symbolic for force and control.
And violence,
And violence, exactly. So cohesion, everything that is a form of cohesion comes from a place of force, which is temporary, consumes energy, and just goes nowhere.
Yeah, and
eventually will dissipate.
I also included a belt buckle
Yeah.
for slavery and whipping. And so I had symbols of slavery, but I had symbols of freedom and joy. I had a white rose, which is often associated with memorials and death. But I had the Statue of Liberty, and I had symbols of, like, that's why I love that yellow in that piece. Turns out those are the colors of Black Lives Matters. And I didn't even know that when I started making the piece. I found that out later. I was like, oh, that's interesting how that works.
Very interesting. So, and speaking of healing, what does healing feel like when you're creating?
What does healing feel
ultimately,
like?
It's clearing the heart. It's rejuvenating, feeling rejuvenated and revitalized, and coming from a place of inspiration. You want to inspire the people how to heal themselves, right?
Yeah. So I think this is an interesting question, because first it's emotional healing, like from the grief of the car crash, or for other people it's the grief of losing their loved one. But now I'm going through a physical healing with my knee was just operated on a month ago. So what healing feels like to me is peace. It's just peace. Because when you're going through the pain following a surgery or following of the loss of a loved one, there is so much obsessive thinking.
Yes.
Like with the car crash, could I have done something different? You start blaming yourself. You have survivor's guilt. Why did this happen? If we had left 10 minutes earlier, 10 minutes later. But it was all divinely planned. I believe that now. Like I'm glad my mother really got her wish. She
Mhm.
wanted to not survive a car crash. She said that multiple times throughout her life. She probably manifested this because she said, I don't want to get old and be in a nursing home.
Mhm.
I don't want to have anyone take care of me. So she died instantly. She didn't suffer. She wasn't in a wheelchair. She didn't have to live out miserable years in a nursing home or whatever. But healing feels like peace, because if you're not physically healed or mentally healed, if you still have a wound from childhood or
Mhm.
trauma,
Mhm.
you're going to have you're not going to sleep well. You're
Mhm.
going to be constant in the monkey mind,
Yeah.
obsessive thinking.
And I was trying to ask you, do you think that peace is found in stillness and silence?
Yes. Oh, yeah. And I was someone that never liked stillness. I had to fill every second of every day. And now I go on 4-day silent retreats,
You do.
which some of my friends still can't believe I do that. And at a Jesuit center here in St. Louis, it's beautiful. I love it. And I love meditation, and I love silence. Now I crave silence.
Mhm.
I crave
Mhm.
it, because that's when you can connect best with source,
Correct.
right? When you're
Yes.
busy mind, and it's hard to tell that now because I'm talking a lot, but to get to that place of no thought, of just listening to inspiration.
Good. And I think Center for Spiritual Living is a wonderful place to find stillness. And before services on Sundays, you guys have a meditation practice.
At 10:30. And I never knew how to meditate before finding this philosophy. Never. And I just thought meditation was a big waste of time, because I should be out doing stuff.
Yeah, because you were still ingrained into that productivity model.
Yes, yes.
If you're not producing,
yes.
you're worthless, right?
Yes. And now it's the reverse is true. The more I meditate, the more I can get to stillness, the more productive I am.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because I can
Isn't that
have
great?
clear thinking. And that comes through massage as well,
Oh,
not
yes,
just meditation.
absolutely. Absolutely. I can see
The
that in
healing
my
arts,
practice.
yeah.
Yeah, and yoga as well.
Yeah,
We have
yoga.
something called yin yoga, where you hold stretches for a prolonged periods of time. You hold a stretch for 3 minutes, 5 minutes, and allowing the connective tissues and the fascia to release through attention and intention, right? So I cannot
need
even
to learn more about that.
definitely. There's so much, and it's an art. It's a science.
Yes, definitely.
How do broken objects mirror human experience?
Well, I love the theme about finding wholeness in the brokenness. I got sober in 2003, and I didn't even think I had a problem. I thought everybody drank. We live in a society where alcohol is at every function, right? Every birthday, every holiday, everything.
Yes.
And I knew I wasn't achieving some of my dreams. I think I knew alcohol was holding me back, because I'd be tired on the weekend, or hungover, or I would just give up on my dreams. And so I had signed up to go to a workshop on how to live and work in France, and I did not show up. And that, to me, was the final broken promise to myself. And I thought, I'm going to get sober. So I got sober. And one of the things that they talked about, I heard, was that, you need to allow yourself to have the vessel broken, and God, as the potter's hands, will reshape the vessel into something more beautiful. Now that I could live with. The brokenness, I wasn't too excited about having my life shattered. They're like, you have to change everything. You have to change your friends, your playmates, where you go, hang out, everything. Yes. I was very involved in politics. Politics has a lot of alcohol and a lot of ego-driven opinions. I was involved in raising money. There was all that intensity. Anyway, but the Japanese have that word, kintsugi. I can't pronounce it correctly. KINSUGI, something like that. Where they fill in the broken crack of a teacup with gold. And they prize that teacup more because it's been broken and filled in with gold. And I love that, because they don't just throw that teacup out. We live in such a disposable society. We throw out everything. Perfectly good, usable furniture that somebody else who doesn't have a couch could use. Or we throw out jewelry. People tell me, I said, do you have any old jewelry? I just threw it out. Oh no, it's going to sit in a landfill forever. I'm like, give it to me. Give me your old keys, your buttons, your pins, your jewelry, and I will repurpose it. And I love that in Africa they make those beads out of glass,
Right.
Coke bottles, and window glass, and they grind it up into a powder, and they make it into a beautiful new bead, and they paint it, and it has a new life. So I love that we can repurpose things,
Gotcha.
and that people, individuals.
But how do you
also
find a
can be-
balance for the hoarders listening to this? How do
might
you
be
find
one
a
of them.
balance? Like, when do you know it's the time to let go of something that, because, even in my house in Salerno, and also I see it everywhere, people get emotionally attached to things.
Yes.
They associate that plate to an experience.
Yes. This is a personal challenge I've had to face. And my spiritual path has helped me, and I've talked to a lot of people about letting go of my mother's things, the things I had so few of, like the, whatever, furniture. I had a dresser, it was antique. I carried this thing weighs a ton, from New Hampshire to Maryland, from Maryland to Colorado to here. And I
know Americans having to rent storage rooms because they cannot handle all the stuff.
Yeah. So I had this, but I was using it. But then I put it in a storage room for 10 years in my house. And I finally realized my mother wasn't in that furniture. First of all, she got that furniture at a difficult time in her life when she had nothing, and she rented an apartment, and that furniture was in it. It wasn't like antiques that had been my family for generations. But someone helped me by saying, by releasing it, you're giving it to someone else who will love it into new life. Just like when people release their old jewelry to me, and I can give it a new life.
Yes.
And so I was going to sell it for a while, and anyway, I put it out there on social media. I have this beautiful dresser in Vanity, free to a good home. And this woman was restoring an old cabin or something, and she said, "I promise I will love it and take care of it." I'm like, "Okay, here it is. Have it. It's yours." And so I think for me, releasing things to people that can use it. There are so many agencies that can use our old stuff.
Do you think it's recycled energy?
Recycled energy, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, the other day we did a clothing swap at Blue Sky Yoga Studio. Everybody brought their old clothes, and we exchanged it.
I love that.
And one of the yoga instructors brought just for me some old pants, some sweatpants that belonged to her ex-boyfriend.
Okay. You're like, this has ex-boyfriend energy on it.
I said, okay, it's your boyfriend's recycled energy. I can make good use out of it.
But if she hadn't told you that, you would just, these are.
But it's important. I mean, for me, it's the lived experience that works. It's when things are repurposed for the creation of new life.
Yes, exactly.
Right. So for me, it's a life constructive activity, right? That produces new and more life.
And we wouldn't have poverty today if everyone paid it forward.
Yes.
There's so many people that have nothing. We had a bird cage that we just wanted to get rid of. We just upgraded. Bird cages are hugely expensive, turns out. And even used bird cages, you'd see them at antique stores. They want hundreds of dollars. Anyway, we have a cockatoo, so we have this bird cage. My partner just wanted to trash it. I'm like, absolutely not. We're going to clean it up and give it away to someone. And within 10 minutes, we had 20 people wanting this thing. And they showed up with this family showed up from North County with a flatbed truck, and they were so happy. And maybe that might give them a bird. Maybe that's the thing that they wanted a bird, but they couldn't afford the cage. Now they have a cage, and that cage will live on another 10 years.
So what would you say to the people that often say, the things you own end up owning you, because each thing or piece of furniture has weight as matter, right?
Well, that's true, because you can't, you can't just pick up and go. Like when I was younger, I didn't own much. I had a lot of, freedom to travel, go here and there.
Right.
Now I have a lot of earthly things that, maybe are holding me in place but on the other hand, my rootedness and me, like this house that I live in now is the first house I've ever owned. And I've lived in this house longer than I've lived anywhere in my life. And I wonder, if I wasn't so grounded and rooted in this house, would I have had the time and attention and patience to make this art? Probably not,
Right.
because I was always running and gunning here and there.
Mm-hmm.
So there, but I realized there's no one holding me back but me. So I'm applying to art residencies where I can go away for 2 weeks or a month,
Mm-hmm.
somewhere else, a cabin in the woods in Michigan, and create there.
Yes.
So I'm exploring new opportunities.
So you think that an artist the minimum required for an artist is a small laboratory where you can start expanding your consciousness and have a tiny space for creation. You can bring in the stuff you need.
Yes and no, because look at what Nelson Mandela did. He was in prison and he wrote a book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now he had one little window he could look out.
Yes.
So even being in prison,
yes,
you're not. And Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning,
yes,
I think is the book.
Yes.
He talked about being, in the camps during the Holocaust. As long as you have freedom of what you think and what you can be anywhere, you can transport yourself.
Yes.
So to be an artist, you can write the great American novel in jail, and many
That's
have.
correct.
So as much as I'd like to have a physical studio outside the house and a gallery, like that's like maybe a next step. On the other hand, I have a beautiful working space. I'm surrounded by plants. I can walk outside the door and look at a water fountain and some other flowers growing when it's nice weather. But that won't stop me from going to Italy or other countries and exploring the world. If, luckily I don't have children. I do have pets. They do require care. It's expensive to take someone in to sit and watch your animals.
Yes,
but there are but there are bartering arrangements, perhaps. But and it's you have to find someone you trust. But I hope that doesn't hold me back.
Good.
But I used to think it would. I used to think I'm trapped in this house and I can't go anywhere.
I know.
Really, that's the stuff we tell ourselves.
Good. Yeah. So it's reshaping our inner narratives.
Yes.
Absolutely. Now I want to ask you a question to go back to what you said earlier about alcohol, your experience with alcohol.
Yes.
I think this is a collective problem.
Yes.
And in America alone, alcohol can wipe out a huge chunk of population, not to include, of course, the drug, the fentanyl, all about that, right?
Yes.
It's a huge epidemic.
Yeah.
So in your personal experience, how did you release the need to use alcohol as a form of escapism, for example, or as a form of mellowing? And what was your pathway? And if you did explore options like AA, once you realized that you had the problem?
Yes. So Wayne Dyer has a book, I think, called To Every Solution, There's a Spiritual Solution.
Yes, I have the book.
And that is the truth. The only thing that fills that hole inside is a spiritual solution. In my experience and in witnessing and seeing many other people, if they don't find the spiritual solution and they just say, people go to treatment over and over and over again. Luckily, I never had to go to. They didn't even have treatment centers probably around when I got sober. But the issue is treatment is not going to fix the person or help the person. And it is a disease, and it has to be treated on 3 levels: spiritual, mental, and physical. You can put down the substance, but you still have the spiritual malady, and you still have the emotional malady, where, we're highly sensitive people. My mother used to tell me when I was a little kid, you're too sensitive to what people say. You need to develop thick skin. But I never knew what that meant. But I also think being a sensitive person is sometimes will lead you towards art because you want to express yourself through words or pictures or your creative outlet. But I think as far as what you asked, I think it's a spiritual solution, and it has to be addressed at the physical, the mental, and the spiritual. And some people address it 1 or 2, but they don't ever get that spiritual piece.
That's true. And reshaping their identity, Tony Robbins says that the strongest force that drives the human personality is the need to remain consistent with the way we identify ourselves. So first of all, just like smokers don't stop smoking for real until they reshape their identity. So since when? We
call it a psychic change.
Right.
Actually, Carl Jung also wrote about this. Carl Jung had played a role before AA even started. But you have to have an entire psychic change.
Right.
And for me, you know what my identity was? I had a business card. My boss said, you can put any title you want on that business card. I was in marketing for a website that did social, before we had social media. We had this website, and we would take pictures at events, and we would write stories, and we would, whatever, help nonprofits. And I wanted the title of my job. I thought, this is so great. Finally, I get to pick my job title. Party girl. I wanted my name to be Brenda Fraser Party Girl. No, I mean, honestly, and then now I think about that, that's like, I can't believe that was my self-definition, because I thought bringing joy to the world was my personality, but my personality only when drinking. Because without drinking, I was not the party girl.
Gotcha.
Right?
Yes.
I was the sad person at home girl. So now I realize I can still be the party girl, but through my art. Through my art. Oh,
beautiful.
It took a lot of work to get here.
So if somebody sees you at an expo or at a fundraiser event and somebody offers you a drink, what do you do?
No, thank you. I have an allergy to it.
Oh.
That's one answer. The other answer is not today. I don't feel like it. Just, I'm not drinking today. I used to think that I would be wearing this big red light if I didn't drink at social events, and everyone would think I was so weird. And then I realized that a lot of people don't drink for many reasons. They're either on medicine, or their dad was an alcoholic and committed suicide, or they had whatever. People have a million reasons why they don't drink. So now I don't feel like ashamed about it. And I used to never talk about it. This is one of the few interviews I've ever talked about it. I used to never talk about it. But now, if I can talk about it, and maybe one person who has an issue with it feels like they can reach out to me, please do.
That's
reach
great.
out to him, and he'll give you my number.
Awesome.
And that's how we keep it. We
Yes,
give it away.
absolutely.
And I think that's a spiritual principle for a lot of things. We only keep what we have. Like, you're giving away what you know by doing this show. Because you introduced me to David Hawkins, who I'd heard about years ago and forgot about. But now I'm going to read his stuff. Thanks to you.
I wouldn't be the same person without the teachings of Dr. Hawkins. Absolutely sublime. Sublime, yes. And in fact, this is a great question, a great follow-up question. So what is reclaimed in us when we choose to honor what's being broken?
What is reclaimed in us?
When we choose to honor what's being broken.
When we choose to honor what's being broken. When we reclaim our God self. We reclaim our soul. We reclaim that we're children of God. We reclaim that we have a spiritual purpose on the earth, and it's not for self-indulgent reasons. Our spiritual purpose might be to help that one person. We don't know what our spiritual purpose is. People pay a lot of money to go to workshops and study with gurus for $10,000, which I don't recommend. And they still come away from that going, what's my spiritual purpose? Your spiritual purpose is only revealed to you after you've lived it, and you look back. Like, I look back at that girl I helped in Africa, and I'm like, wow, that is why I went to Africa. Not for what I thought was my intention of learning about this jewelry that they make there, but was to change this one person's life. And she changed my life, so we don't, and we may never even know what our spiritual purpose is until the very end.
Sure, absolutely. And, just like the action of speaking about it and raising awareness of what's being broken can trigger the awakening portion and the switch in identity, changing one's identity.
It gives other people permission to talk about their brokenness. Because my reception I had here November 9th, were you here for my art opening?
Yes.
So I did a completely different talk that day than I would have done at another venue. And I talked about my brokenness openly. And there were people that had known me for 20 years who go here, and regular attenders who came up to me and said, thank you.
Yes.
Because you shared a part of yourself that we hadn't seen before. Or you talk, because I put on a happy face. And, I came Sunday with a happy face. My knee was hurting. But I'm not going to come here and cry and, blah, 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 about what I'm going through. But, it's like your day shows up the way you show up. If you want a happy day, you show up happy. You wear, I love, there's a trend right now, and seeing on social media, all these older ladies that are like 80s and 90s years old wearing bright colors. And I'm like, I love that. Be eccentric, dye your hair, do something different, wear the shape of the country of your ancestors, men can wear jewelry. I love seeing
Well,
men in
I'm
jewelry.
Italian from head to toe. I'm a simply
Yes.
I'm an exotic plant in America, but
I love it,
yeah.
but we need more exotic plants. Why do we just don't want all grass and daisies, So I just think people need permission, especially here and now in this state, from what I've seen. People need permission to be more expressive
Sure.
and to express the hard and the sorrowful times as well as the joyful times, because otherwise you just look at social media or television or movies and you think everybody has this one life, and that's not the truth.
Right.
That's the surface.
That's true. Well, so we all share the same humanness.
Yeah.
I know what once you get to a certain level of unconditional loving level of consciousness, you realize that what makes me happy makes you happy. What makes you sad makes you sad. We're not separate.
Yeah.
That's the beauty and the curse of being human. You can feel at a heart level. You can sense the both the light and the shadow of anybody. You can read by intuition, by scanning.
But that's a skill.
That's a skill, of course.
You're a master at that.
No, I wouldn't call myself a master.
They don't have awareness even that that exists. But I do feel that.
The bodies, for example, our body is a business card. You can tell so much. It's like reading a book if you know how to read it. Every health coach that is out there will be able to tell you exactly what I'm saying. That is, I can tell from your dietary habits, by just scanning your body. No, but not from a place of judgment, from a place of just like observation.
Too many bagels for you.
The way somebody walks, your hairdo, all those are symbolic of your daily lifestyle. Yeah. The hairdo, the way you dress, the shoes.
And like those symbols you're talking about are what I then put into the art piece.
Yes.
There's sometimes interesting symbols. This woman brought to me a jar full of rosaries. Her aunt was a nun and used to give her rosaries of it. And she said, I want to put these rosaries on this cross. Well, having been raised Catholic, I was like, oh, I'm going to have to cut these rosaries and deal with these sacred objects, and put it on this cross. But the cross, it was very large. It had openings in it. It was hand carved. But she showed me, I said, I always ask them for a picture of their loved one. Because I want to get at least a little mental picture. And this woman had these cat's eye glasses like they used to wear. My Aunt B had these cat's eye eyeglasses that are kind of pointy. And I found a charm that had those eyeglasses. And I put it on the piece. But it was a very meaningful piece because it was honoring that woman as a woman who devoted her life to her faith.
Yes.
And but then this woman now could have a piece of art on her wall instead of these rosaries sitting in a jar.
So now I have a great question for you, and this is something that I talked about with Reverend Celeste when she came onto my channel about a month ago. And so you mentioned this lady who was had this bunch of rosaries, right?
Yes.
And which is obviously associated with the Catholic or Christianity, right?
Yes.
And what I talked about with Reverend Celeste was that there is this distinction between the new thought and the spirit, which is essentially, it is the same principle of oneness and unconditional love, but it is devoid from the guilt and the shame and the dogma. Like if you're gonna burn in hell. Exactly. There is somebody who's judging you out there beyond the clouds. Right. That is going to send you to hell.
It's a terrible way to live.
Right.
Fear.
So tell me your take on it and why you joined Central for Spiritual. I will just say
one of my takes was I used to ask a lot of questions growing up. And I said to my mother, how can people in Africa be doomed to hell just because they're not Catholic? Because she thought only Catholics were going to heaven and no one else. And so I could never understand that. So she would say that's blasphemous to even ask that question. See? I walked into Science of Mind and they were like, ask questions, challenge, think about so now I've gone full circle.
Yes.
So now I've gone full circle where I can honor the rosary of my mother. I can honor mala beads that were the precursor to the rosary. The Romans went out and saw the mala beads and thought, good marketing that's a great idea. Let's make rosary beads. Really, I think that's kind of how it went. But I can honor my childhood faith of my Catholic background by going to this Jesuit retreat center. Like when I first went there, I thought, oh, I don't know. You know, they didn't try to push or force their philosophy on me. And they actually, they said, well, you can sign up for 15 minutes with a father or priest. I don't know what I'm going to say to him. I said, well, you can take it or leave it. It's there if you want to use it. I thought, you know what? I'm going to challenge myself. I'm going to go sign up and meet with them. And I walked in there and I said, I have a lot of problems with the institution, the patriarchy, the this, the that. And he said, that's cool. Like he was so, you know what, if there's a tug of war with the rope, if one person lets go, the other person, you know, there's no tug of war anymore. And he was smart. He was an evolved man of faith, where he just said, that's fine. So he gave me permission to enter that back into that philosophy at any point that I wanted to enter into, and just take from it what I needed, which was silence, walking the path of St. Ignatius, reading about St. Ignatius, reading about the saints. And so now I don't feel like I have to choose. I used to feel like I had to choose Christianity or New Thought. And there was something about both that I liked. And, you know, I notice how you sign your emails, and I admire that because, you know, it's all one.
It is all one.
We can bring forth the valuable parts of Christianity, and we can bring forth the valuable parts of New Thought. And it's a great way to live because then you're not in a box.
Yeah, and love is freely given.
And love is freely given.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely wonderful. Let's talk about now. I want to switch to gears to more spirit, nature, and consciousness. So, talking about your daily life, how do you experience spirit in your daily life? How does it present itself?
Definitely nature and being out in nature, which is harder when it's cold because, you know, I don't push myself enough to go outside when it's cold. But nature, having a lot of animals and pets around me, having plants around me, meditating. Sometimes it's music. Sometimes it's listening to guided meditation. Sometimes,
did you have the same perception when you were in your teenage or 20s? Were you recognizing spirit in your daily life? Were you listening to the song of a bird, or I don't know, the purring of a cat?
And I would say, like, since sobriety and my spirituality are so, like, my spiritual wake up was a little bit in '96 when the car crash happened, and I started reading more books and why am I here and why did I live. But when I found Science of Mind and that, you know, sort of a concrete philosophy I could latch onto, things lined up. And I kind of associate it with my sobriety more so than my spirituality, but my sobriety is based on spirituality in that before I got sober, I was looking down. And I was consumed with self-obsessive thinking. And then after sobriety, there was a day I can remember a distinct experience, which was this incredible, beautiful experience at Red Rocks, Red Rocks in Colorado.
Yes,
and they had a sunrise service on Easter morning.
Wow.
And I asked some people to go, and then I asked, it's going to be very cold. And I said, oh, by the way, I need someone to drive. I didn't have my license at the moment. And so 2 other women said, I'll go. And we, bundled up and took hot chocolate. And it was an interfaith service. And they had Native Americans, and they had gospel singers, and they had something else. And they released these beautiful white doves. And when those white doves just started billowing up, I just started weeping. And it was so moving to me. And I call that one of my spiritual wake-up moments, because I just felt this like pure love in that moment. And after this Red Rocks service, we went to this little nearby mountain, Lookout Mountain.
Okay.
And we drove to the tippity top, and there's a cross up there, and we just held hands and said a prayer. And it was the most beautiful experience I had to that point. Prior to sobriety, did I ever have a spiritual feeling like that? I doubt it. I don't recall any.
Okay. Well, let me ask you. So you mentioned, walks in nature. So what does nature teach you about creation, and why are animals such powerful symbols in your work?
Well, I think nature teaches us renewal and Mother Earth and regeneration. like learning about Pele, the goddess in Hawaii of fire, the goddess of fire, destruction. People can see Pele as burning everything to the ground. And sometimes in our lives, we burn everything to the ground. But then what comes up is more nutritious. You know, in the West, they have the prairie dogs and the bison, and they used to see the prairie dogs as a rodent, and they wanted to eradicate the prairie dog. Well, to me, it was the long line of, you know, they eradicated the bison, which was the food source for the Native Americans, and they put the Native Americans on reservations, and then they wanted to eradicate. But where the prairie dogs and the bison go, the prairie dogs eat the grass, and the grass that grows up is more nutritious for the bison. So there's this whole evolution and circle and keystone species, right? Everything is connected. And so with Pele and the burning, you know, the flowers, that you've seen these pictures of where these huge fires were out west, and these incredible flowers are pushing their way through. So that's, if you compare that to our lives, no matter what we do, no matter, we go bankrupt, we lose our business, we lose our partner, we lose our loved one, you know, everything blows up and burns to the ground.
Yes.
You know what? You're going to come back stronger and more beautiful than what you were before that. I mean, you look at people that have survived. I know an artist who survived New Orleans, the flooding, and then she gets her house and gets her art. Guess what? Her house burns down. And so she lost everything twice.
It's a constant process of renewal.
Yeah. And now she knows that she's not those things. She's not that house. She's not the art she even created. She's this being that can live through tragedy. We can live through our hard experiences and come out on the other side more strong, more beautiful, and able to help people that are stuck in that, staring at that burnt house. You know, they're just stuck in their bitterness. And I know someone who lost a family member at a very young age, a child, and the mother got stuck spiritually and never moved on from that experience. And so that is tragic to me, you know. So our role, you know, I think mutually as healers and people that believe in this philosophy is to help other people get unstuck.
Yeah, totally. So, you know, you mentioned always, you know, something that is concrete, right? Physical, something that you can actually touch, smell, see, and hear.
Yeah.
But the presence of divine grace is non-physical. It's something that goes beyond proof.
Yeah.
You know, I can prove your creation, right? So the presence of divinity is beyond time and place. It's something that requires a completely shift in the paradigm. A shift in paradigm.
Yeah.
So we understand that creation is ongoing and continuous, right?
Yes.
It's something that goes on and on, even way before we came into this short form. This 100 years best that we have to live in this movie called Our Lives. And and then it will continue for generations and generations. So I want to say, so your art, living something concrete from broken pieces, is it your form of legacy? Something you want to live?
No, my legacy is not my art as much as I'd like it to be. My legacy is empowering women through education. That's my legacy.
Beautiful.
Because education can't be taken from someone. People can lose their houses, they can burn down, they can lose their spouse, they can lose their money, but you can never lose your education.
Yes.
So a lot of women world around the planet do not have access to education. And mostly it's money and mostly it's culture. But here in America, if you don't go to college,
money is a tool of control, of course. Decision-making authority is based on money, right?
Right. But if you don't go to college right after high school, there's a gap. Now, maybe you got married, maybe something happened, maybe you had to pay a caregiver, something. So these women, they're called returning learners. There's very little money, scholarship for them to go back to school. So I had a sister who was in her 50s and always wanted to go back to college. And she had a mental health issue, and people didn't really believe or cheered her on to go back to college. But I did, and I knew she could and should if she wanted to. So she was found dead 3 weeks in her apartment. And after that, I was in a professional women's organization called Zonta, Z-O-N-T-A, and we made a scholarship in her memory at a local community college. And it's to help women go back to school, whatever age they are. And so now I want to expand that internationally. And I did it with this woman from Ghana, but I want to help women in other countries.
Of course, education is empowerment,
Yeah.
100%. I strongly admire that. So let's see. Tell me about how does CSL, Center for Spiritual Living, influence your worldview? And yeah, let's answer this one first.
Well, I think in the beginning it was the authors like Hawkins, but like they have this magazine called The Guide for Spiritual Living.
Oh wow, there was an actual magazine.
Oh yeah, there still is. You can subscribe to it. This one was in March of 24, and it was it used to be monthly. This one was 2 months, and half of it's 1 month, half of it, and it's a daily reader. There's daily things about law of circulation. There's various articles. So, I think.
Who writes that?
Various people. You can submit an article to it. Yes, you can submit an article.
Okay.
And so when I first started, and this introduced me to a lot of authors. And like when I first started going there, the very first month, they were talking about the 12 conditions of a miracle. And the author of that book was available for meetings. And it was the first time I had paid $50 to meet with somebody. And he told me my life was a miracle. Well, that was a radical thought.
Yes.
Because being raised Catholic, miracles are things that only happened in the Bible and weren't really something we had access to. But this introduced me to a lot of various authors and a lot of various people, like Michael Gott. He's a great example. He's a musician. He's been here to play piano. He's got CDs out. He's now the senior minister in Houston, Texas. So first it was an intellectual connection, right? Authors, books, magazines. Then it was a surrendering of my ego and what I thought I knew through learning meditation, through connecting with people. The center in Denver is huge. It's 1,000 people. So it's hard to make a lot of personal relationships. However, how I had a nonprofit that was forming called the Center Foundation for Peace. And they had hired me to do a gala with Arun Gandhi, Gandhi's grandson. And they had no money, they had no mailing list, they had nothing. And they hired me at Christmas time, and the event was the end of January.
Oh, wow.
So we had no
30 days.
Yeah, we had no lead time. And they had signed a $20,000 contract with the hotel. So they said, we want to raise money at this hotel, we want a gala dinner and all this stuff. And they had Zippo resources. But they had, a lot of them on that committee went to Mile High. So I actually got to see Mile High in action before I walked into the building called Mile High. Because these people saw in their mind a full ballroom. And I thought, what are they smoking? Like these people, and I had just come out of working for the symphony and the Diamond Tiaras and all this socialite stuff. And here was this group of people that had the vision and the belief, more so than I had at that time, to see that this was going to happen and be successful. And they had nothing in place that you should have in place before you start an adventure like this. And guess what? We did it. We raised a lot of money. We also even had, oh my gosh, we have, oh, that was another organization. We had Chevy Chase and his wife show up for, that was a different thing. No, but at this Imagine Peace, we had Arun Gandhi, I mentioned, and we had Nawang Kichang, who is a Tibetan flutist and studied with the Dalai Lama. And he lived in Colorado, and we got him for free. We had all these musicians for free. I recruited friends to do the silent auction. We raised a lot of money. And it was so interesting. The night of that gala, we were in this room talking about peace, and across the hall was another ballroom with Coca-Cola or some big corporation having their, and it was a complete contrast. But I did that event, and I found the center of Mile High, and the people at Mile High were the same people that, like, that was a microcosm of this bigger. And then when I moved here, I researched this center, and it's a teaching location. That was important to me. So you can take classes here. And not every Center for Spiritual Living has classes, and the classes are, we have accredited classes, so you can earn whatever credits. So now I forgot what you're.
It's okay. No, it's okay. It's okay. So let's fact. I was going to say that when you create a new event, you were talking about, how time compressed you had from Christmas
Yes,
to
yeah.
the end of January.
But it was all, yes.
It all started in the mind,
It
right?
all started in the mind.
So it
That's right.
requires, number one, understanding what the human needs are.
Yeah.
Right? You have said what drives people to do certain things. It has to be grounded in some
Yes.
level of truth.
Yes.
Right? People want certainty, wants a little variety, wants some entertainment, wants
Yeah.
safety,
And
wants food, wants drinks, wants to congregate.
But money in community. You can ask those same people individually for $100, and you'll say you'll get no. You put them in a room, and there's a different psychology that happens.
Yes.
Where it's like a grace consciousness thing. It's something that happens when you have people in a room and you present the vision.
Yes.
You have to present the vision. I always said in fundraising, the hardest thing was to present the vision and have people see that vision in their mind. The mechanics are easy. The selling the tickets, the getting the auction, that stuff's easy.
Yes.
It's the hard part is getting the vision. If they don't have vision, if you can't successfully paint the picture of what is possible,
right? Because
I worked with a lot of small groups, a lot of startup nonprofits, and they all had this like image problem of themselves. Oh, we're small. We're in the woods in a trailer. No one cares about us. We're a shelter at an undisclosed location, helping battered women.
Right.
We can't tour people. Or we don't have any money, and this other group over here has all the media and press, and they have all the big donors on the board. It's not about the big donors on the board. It's not about, I used to call it, it's like a Bill Gates syndrome, I used to call it, or a sugar daddy syndrome. We're just going to find that one donor that's going to write the one big check.
Yeah.
You don't want that. That's what's happened to a lot of nonprofits now. They relied on one source, and that source goes away, the government. Okay? A lot of funding is dried up, gone away. And they have one leg of four for the chair falls over. You can't have one major source.
No.
It has to be individuals. You have to inspire individuals.
Exactly. And tap into the human spirit, which is perennial like grass. You're never going to run out of that.
That's a good way of putting it.
Of course. Another thing I was going to say.
You have to believe in abundance.
You have to believe in abundance. For example, you mentioned that first you have to create a vision. People has to be able to recognize value in the vision.
Yeah.
And then the business itself takes care of itself. Like, I created Yogaphora LLC as a concept first. Has no physical manifestation as of yet. It's just, but then the business itself is just system, process, and application, which you can learn today on YouTube, or artificial intelligence can tell you how to set up your own business. Right. It's that easy these days. Right. Before you had to go to business school and spend a ton of money in education. Nowadays, those resources are available at little to no cost to everybody. That's how crazy technology has advanced these days.
That's correct.
So now let me ask you just a few more see yourself focused questions. Okay. Yes. So.
And I do want to talk about these two books.
Of course. Sounds great. Oh, gratitude.
Yeah.
Wonderful. That's one of the things that raises naturally your frequency. How do you personally understand the relationship between God or source or consciousness? Those are all labels, by the way.
Yeah.
And your lived human experience.
How do I describe?
How do you personally understand the relationship? How do you mentioned earlier that your creations come to you and you act as the vessel, right?
Yeah.
You receive inspiration and you make it manifest through. So what is your daily, do you have like a routine? Do you have rituals?
Well, I mentioned the incense and the music, but this is a new ritual I've developed, and this is The Artist's Way, which written by Julia Cameron, who I've got
Oh my goodness, I just saw this. Oh, this is like the Daily Artist's Way. Those are the meditation.
So this is a daily application of a book she wrote 40 years ago. And I've studied with her in Santa Fe.
That is so cool. It keeps popping up.
And I interviewed her on my podcast. You should interview her.
I went to a writer's club the other day and they showed exactly the same book.
Yeah. So that means you should look into it. So this one is a daily reader, and it has wonderful affirmations in it. It has, it sort of has an affirmation, but it has writing prompts. Because I used to always thought I was going to be the writer. Like that was my dream, was to be a writer and write books. And I've been in books and I've anthologies and I've done a lot of writing. And I studied with Julia Cameron in a one-day writing workshop, which was amazing. But I want to now combine the writing and the visual art together.
For the audience that don't know about this book, can you please, mention what is the book is all about? Not this particular book, but I'm talking the bestseller book.
The Artist's Way is tips on opening up your creativity, whether you're an artist or not. These are three. Actually, there's four. I used to always think there's four basic things. And this, if you just apply these to your life will change. I guarantee it.
Tell me about it.
One is writing what she calls morning pages. And you take a notebook, like I always say, use a cheap notebook because we don't want to mess up those pretty journals. Take a cheap little college notebook, and every morning you write 3 solid pages. You don't edit it, you don't fix it for grammar, and you don't read yesterday's. You just write. It dumps out all the garbage out of your brain onto the paper. Okay, step 1. Step 2 is once a week you go on an artist date by yourself to a new environment. It can be a gallery. It can be a shop you've always wanted to go to. It can be a park. It's something you are taking yourself to get inspiration from another source. I love artist dates. I've gone to so many amazing places on artist dates with myself. It's so great. The third is being out in nature, going on a walk a couple of times a week, because that's when you're getting your spiritual download. Like a computer has to download new software or update those programs, you get your spiritual download when you're out walking. I like to walk labyrinths, and I neglected to mention that earlier. But a labyrinth walking I started on the anniversary of my mother's death, and I've been doing them now everywhere I travel. I will drive hours. Like I was out in Santa Fe, I drove up to Taos just to walk this labyrinth up there. And I walked the labyrinth, and there's a feather sticking straight up, and I'm like, oh, that's unusual. I
remember Deepak Chopra talked about walking the labyrinth.
Oh, I love labyrinth walking. Anyway, so they're all over the country. And
what's the fourth?
And this is the fourth.
Oh, that is.
Well, I have to read the fourth because I always forget the fourth. And the fourth might be meditation.
Okay.
I don't even remember the fourth.
It's okay.
Here it is. Here it is right here. So walking, artist dates, writing, and so the fourth one is writing for guidance. Now this is great. So you have a question that's bothering you. Should I do this or should I do that? So some people say, write the question in your journal and let it go to sleep, and in the morning you'll have inspiration. So she has it writing for guidance, and because you ask the question, what is it I need to know about this situation? For example, that could be, and then you just start writing because it's going to come through. We can tap into, there's all wisdom, all knowledge, all information in the universe, and we just have to kind of tap into it, right? It's like on a radio station where we used to have to tune the radio station. You're learning to finely tune to get to that frequency where you can get that information.
Interesting.
So I like that. What should I do about X, the problem? And then listen, and then write down what you hear. Writing for guidance.
Okay.
So 4 tools.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. That's awesome. And you also have another book about gratitude, which is wonderful.
Melody Beattie, who wrote a lot of books on codependency back in the 80s or 90s, she wrote this little teeny book. I love this little book because it's not too big, and you can take it with you if you travel.
That's right.
Affirming the good things in life. If you're in gratitude, you're not in suffering.
Yes.
Basic. And so this little book has little things to remind us, because we all forget. We can study all the masters of the world, but we can all forget because we're human. Cool. And so this just kind of gives
That's what I recommend to all of my yoga students in the morning when I teach the class, even in the evening or morning class. Reconnect to what you can be grateful for: your health, your wealth, your grace, your freedoms.
Yeah.
Right.
And just like when you sit down for a meal, you can say a traditional prayer. That's great. Or you can just say, what are you grateful for today?
Even if it's just air.
Even if it's just who made this food and picked it off, put it on the truck and shipped it to the store. And then I got this at that retreat last summer, and this is called Born to Do This, 30 Days with Joan of Arc.
Oh, wow.
A teenager that saved France from being owned and possessed by the English.
Okay.
I mean, who led people that didn't even have weapons or money to overcome the invasion of Britain into France. And I
Just
love,
like Gandhi's nonviolence movement,
oh,
right?
I love God. And this we're coming up on the season for nonviolence, which starts at the end of January, goes 64 days. It starts on the assassination date of Gandhi, and it goes to the assassination day of Martin Luther King. And we'll be honoring that here throughout February and March at the Center for Spiritual Living, the season for nonviolence.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's a great announcement.
Yeah.
Let's see, a couple more questions before we end. Let's see. Science of Mind teaches that thoughts held in consciousness shape form. So how does that resonate with your idea of intentional art? Thoughts held in consciousness shape form.
Yeah.
Right. So right now there's more pieces that you will be creating.
Yeah.
But they first start from a thought. Even
right.
this building was created out of a thought.
Exactly. Everything is. And Walt Disney said something like, all things are born in imagination. So, using the imagination. So first I think about this person, either the person who ordered the piece or who it's for. And I think about what do they want what will make them like just smile, right?
Yeah.
And they tell me, oh, this person likes water. They like the color blues and greens. Okay. So that helps me get sort of started in that direction. So I think thought and imagination go hand in hand. And I think we have to let go of what we think is the right thing. And I see a lot of artists, a lot of people that want to be artists stop themselves because they're too attached to perfection. Like I'm a little bit like that with painting. Like I look at a blank canvas and I'm like, because you're raised to think that there are people that are great writers and these great painters. But then you study their lives, and they were really broken people. I mean, Van Gogh would not even be known today if it wasn't for his wife who saved his art and got it out into the world. And now everyone thinks Van Gogh's a master. But at the time, he had a lot of mental health problems. He had a lot of issues.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is to let go of that idea of perfection and first start playing. I think good art starts with playing.
Yes.
And letting your inner child.
Of course.
Yes. And then playing with color and start to experiment, because then you'll find what form is your form. You know what I mean?
That's how children are such a great source of inspiration for us. Even I've observed, and I still observe today, my beautiful, handsome 10-year-old boy.
Yes, you did.
Can I ask you a couple more things? So talking about abundance, right? We all have different financial thermometers, right? We all have a different relationship with money itself. And so how has your understanding of abundance evolved over the years? And what is your relationship with money now?
Well, I think we live in an abundance universe. And I think a lot of people, I experienced this in when I did fundraising for nonprofits. They thought there was a limited pie and everyone was going to get a piece of that pie. Well, now I tell them there is no pie. There's millions of pies, and we can make more pies, and more pies are just going to show up.
That's right.
So I think that's scarcity thinking, right? When there's a limited amount of money, or there are people that are like, how am I going to pay my bills? It's because there was the first year I got sober, I was single. I ended a relationship, and I had to figure out how to pay rent and pay for things. And I always say God shows up in the bottom of the ninth, and I don't know why I use a baseball analogy, because I don't even follow baseball, but like the bases are loaded in the bottom of the ninth. But it to me, my God shows up when I've lost almost all faith in my own ability to make a result. And when I remember, oh yeah, it's not completely up to me. I don't have to figure this out. There's this other source that has all the answers. So I'm just going to turn it over, let it go, and let the source do its job. And then boom, something out of nowhere pops up. That, for example, I had no income in December because I was having surgery.
Right.
And December's a big month for an artist. You're doing a lot of shows, you're selling a lot of stuff, people are buying, and suddenly I'm not doing any shows. I can't promote myself. I was named Artist of the Month by the Missouri Arts Council. I couldn't even promote that. I was in a hospital, where I was at home. I wasn't going to be at the computer. But I got picked for that, and then I found out I had an honorarium that came with that. Well, that was unexpected income right there. Boom.
Nice.
Someone bought something off of Etsy. I don't even do anything on Etsy anymore.
Wow.
Like, I hardly have any art showing there. And this woman from Texas wanted my tree of life. And it connected to some biblical story in Revelations 22 about the 12 fruits of the tree will help bring peace to the world's nations. I didn't even know that story. And so her ordering this introduced me, again, to the Bible and to a story where I don't really read the Bible, but then somehow it comes up, and then there's some profound message. And so we don't have to reject the Bible to follow new thought. You know, the Bible is an amazing, amazing,
and practical too.
Practical source of information. You know, I don't really follow the stories that are doom and gloom and eye for an eye, but there's some amazing stories of things that just showed up. And so things just show up. I mean, you have to let go of your need to know.
Yeah, of course.
You need to know. And how am I going to pay my bills? I don't know. But somehow money shows up.
I understand. And then, you know, the scary part is delegating to source the fulfillment of your own needs. Like you said, rent, utilities, and, you know, car insurance, everything.
Like this friend of mine that lost everything. You know,
right.
She still had her art. You know, no disaster on earth will take what she already has within her.
So what would you tell to somebody who's still living in that kind of fear, you know, that
of financial fear?
Financial fear, yes.
Is to follow your passion, do what you love, the money will follow. I always heard that. Be patient, be willing to ask for help. I think that's hard for a lot of people because they have pride. I don't want to look like I need something.
Right.
But you're giving someone joy who's helping you. I had to ask for help with meals at the beginning of this surgery. Okay. I'm a great cook. I live with someone who's not a great cook. We had plenty of food in the house. It wasn't about having food.
Right.
It was about, we needed someone to help cook the meal and deliver it. Our stress levels were up here. We were, you know, everything was different, right? I'm not being mobile. I can't cook anymore. I can't do my normal household duties, whatever. And I put it out there. I said, I need help. I need some meals. I don't have family that live nearby. And I've lived here 21 years, but, you know, I live far out in the country compared to, you know, where people are around here. So strangers, complete strangers said, I'll bring you a meal. I'll bring you a meal. And that connected me to my local neighborhood. It restored my faith in humanity, that there is more kindness in the world and less division. We focus on politics and these people are this and these people are that, and therefore I don't want to talk to these people or whatever. They think differently. You know what? We are, like you said, we're all human.
Yes.
And the women that brought me food, they were like, I love to cook. My husband doesn't like my cooking. It gave them joy to help me. And it's a circle. I've done a lot for charity. It's my turn to receive. I had to learn how to receive. I don't like to be asking for help, you know, but it came through when I needed it. It was short term, it's 2 weeks. And now the next time someone will ask for something from that community, sure, you need coats, you need sweaters, you need whatever.
And Tony Robbins, in his hierarchy of needs, human needs, he says that the two spiritual needs are growth and contribution to others. So I guess contributing to in that particular way by feeding more people or preparing meals for others definitely is one of the many ways to fulfill your own spiritual needs.
And you know what I found out in fundraising? Everyone thinks in fundraising the people that give money are the wealthiest people, and they're not. The people who give money in this country, at least, are people that are teachers. That's the number one profession. And people that make under $50,000 a year. They are the biggest donors.
You mentioned you live in the country. Did you choose intentionally to live in the country to be away from?
My partner did. No, I always saw myself as a city girl, and I like it. I like going to the theater and concerts, and I like activity and restaurants and diversity. And so my partner said, I'd like to move out there. And I said, absolutely not. I said no, flat out no. And, but she had manifested it. She flew her helicopter over this countryside, saw the rolling hills.
She has a helicopter?
She did. She flew for law enforcement for 28 years. And so she would fly her helicopter over this beautiful, you know, it's wine country. It's second to Napa.
So she did her own area research.
She did.
With an
She
helicopter.
would just fly around. Like she flew around the whole St.
That's
Louis
amazing.
region, 100 miles.
Kudos to your partner.
Yeah. Well,
Amazing.
so she saw this and she said, I want to live there someday. So she had manifested it. She was firm in her resolution. This is where she wanted to live.
So did you buy the land and then
I'll
the house,
tell you what
or
attracted me to the house, because I initially said no, but I agreed to go look at this one house. And you know what? It's because it had a Zen garden.
Oh,
it had this little fish pond and this little quiet thing. I didn't care about the house. It had a pool. It had land. It had whatever. I didn't care about any of that. I wanted this little quiet garden that I could sit and stare at the fish.
Nice.
And that's why I said, okay, we'll do this. Yeah. And, you know, it's a big responsibility. It's, you know, I don't sometimes really appreciate or like what it costs to maintain a home.
Yes.
I would rather take that money and go to Europe for a month. I'm like, or even like with the animals, you know, we have animals, they cost a lot of money. The torn ACL is $2,500 on a dog, and then he does it again, you know.
Yes.
And it's like, oh my God, I could have gone to the Riviera for a month. But, you know, but they add value. They add value.
Yes.
And you have to take care of your children. You have to take care of your pets. And the Bible says dominion over animals does not mean control. And a lot of people misuse that dominion over animals as control. Dominion means care for. We have to care for our animals and our planet.
Yes. Well, we at home in my tiny 2-bedroom apartment, my son and I, we have a ball python.
Oh, wow.
A pet python, a pet snake.
My.
We feed him 1 mouse or 1 rat per week. Some people are grossed out by that, and I just have to say it's just a circle
when my
of life.
cats kill the mice, I'll call you.
Yes. So one more last question. If you want to give an advice to your younger self, what would that be?
Learn how to meditate. Man, I wish I could have quieted my mind at an earlier age. That and you were cared for. You were safe. And,
you were safe.
And the big one, you were not alone.
You're not alone. Okay.
I could feel alone in a crowded room. I could be at a party, having a great time, people looking at me, I'm laughing, I'm dressed nice, and there was a song by Linda Ronstadt called Track of My Tears. They would say, outside I'm laughing and inside I'm crying. And I was really good at wearing masks and putting masks on and off. And I had a lot of different identities. And now I am one person. I am my whole identity, all integrated. And, you know, it's like, I don't have to worry what other people think. I've released that need of, oh, they don't like me. Oh, you know, I was a people pleaser. And, or whatever. Some people are going to really like me. Some people take it or leave it. And some people are going to be annoyed by me because I have a strong personality. And that's okay. I can bless and release them. Not everybody has to love me.
Correct.
You know what? You know, you connect with the people that you resonate with on a deep level, that you respect, that you know are sent your way by source for a purpose, for a reason. We met accidentally at this location, but then we developed, you were very kind and you were something I admired about you. You were very articulate. You had good follow through, and you complimented our minister, and you really meant it.
I love her.
And you followed up with, you said, I'm going to post this on social media, and you did.
I will.
But that you led with kindness, and
thanks.
You know what? To me, that is a rich person who can lead with kindness and give unconditionally of your time for this interview, for the interview with Reverend Celeste.
I don't see.
So I see your beauty and I value it greatly.
In regards to your personality, this is something that I also try to infuse into the people that come to my yoga classes, and I often say that there's nothing more powerful in the world than the human mind and prayer and belief in yourself, regardless of the good or bad opinion of others. And that shows up into your creations, into your artwork. Yeah, and no matter who's around it has been negative or just thrusting negative energy at you, be sure to block it off.
Yes.
Be sure to block it off. You know, repel that kind of negativity, because you create a positive energy field around you, and you become an attractor for
Thank
others.
you. Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
That's what
I
it is.
appreciate that. And I did get a negative comment once on Facebook about a piece of my art. And I don't know what the person said, something about looks like a bunch of trash, or I don't know what he said. And at first I was like, oh. And then I was like,
You're free to ignore it.
I don't care. I know a lot of more people that like it.
I have one more thought-provoking question for you, and this is, I don't know if you were prepared for this one. It's not in the script.
Okay, throw it at me.
And, so one of the ultimate fears that we all have as humans, just because, we're concerned, all of us are concerned with survival. The ultimate fear is the fear of death.
Yeah, I saw that on Hawkins.
The ultimate
YouTube.
fear is on the fear of death. So once you release or let go of that fear, which is the ultimate fear, all the minor other fears collapse.
Yeah,
right.
I love it. I just heard that this morning.
Yes.
I was like, wow, that's so cool.
So
and I think that,
what do you think?
I think that I faced fear right here in that car accident. I should have been dead. We were hit by 2 cars. I should have been dead. There were a lot of times I probably drank and put myself in situations that I should have been dead. There are multiple things that I did in my life through my choices, bad choices, and through other people's behavior that that brought death close to that.
Right. And what is your relationship with impermanence?
So I release that now because I release that now, and I'm not afraid of death. And in fact, I talk about death all the time to the point that it really bothers the person I live with, because I'll say,
"Oh, not me."
There's like environmentally conscious burial now. You can not only be buried in a basket or wicker basket, but there's now liquefaction.
Oh, wow. Not even cremation, liquefaction.
Liquefaction.
Oh, my goodness.
And so your whole body turns into water, gets recycled back into the water source.
Wow.
And the only thing left on the tray is the metal in your hardware in your body, which I have hardware in my body.
Yes.
And then I said, well, jokingly, let's take that hardware and you can make a mosaic out of the hardware in my body, put my picture in the frame. Oh, that's gross. And it's like, you know what? I was just making a joke about it because I don't think death is permanent, because I believe in life after death to the point that we just change form. You can boil water, it becomes steam. You can freeze water, it becomes ice. It's still water. So we'll lose this earthly bodysuit that's like an astronaut suit. We'll lose this body.
Right.
And we'll not be in the physical dimension. And we'll be in another dimension, which hopefully, I believe, is going to be an incredibly beautiful experience. And the author that shaped my thinking on this was Emmett Fox. And he wrote a booklet called Life After Death. And I had this little booklet, and I didn't read it for a long time because I knew it would challenge my thinking. My sister was found dead 3 weeks in her apartment.
Wow.
I came back from the funeral. I read this little booklet, and it said, we take the love with us. We take our loving memories with us. Our memories are restored. She had had shock treatment. Her memories were zapped. We take the loving memories with you when you cross over. And whatever this little booklet said, it just made perfect sense. And it really helped me feel, A, not afraid of my own death, but B, not to grieve those that I've loved. We grieve because we've lost the physical attachment we had to that person, which we're receiving some kind of, physical, psychological benefit from. But if we believe that their spirit, their energy is still there, we still can access it. We can still talk to them. We can write them letters, whatever, and they can inform our work. That's a beautiful thing.
Yes.
Then we don't have to fear losing, a child or a parent.
Yes.
And then it's
But can I ask you? So that's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's very powerful. But for those of us who still have a number of years to live, right? Hopefully, yes. Hopefully,
live each day like it's your last.
Exactly. So, would you agree that by not being afraid of dying, you're not afraid to live?
That's right. That's why I could go to Africa. Because people would think that's crazy for someone to go to Africa. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know where I was going to sleep. I didn't know. I had a lot of questions that were not answered. But I had the faith that I could go there and come back, or maybe not come back, but I knew I was compelled to go. I had to follow that urging, that urge to go, to know, to learn. But yes, I think for surviving the car crash has not only led me to this art. I never would have done this art without surviving the crash, but also it led me to be more fearless and try things that I never would have done on my own.
But for more of, that's awesome. Well, for more of the locals, people living here in this local context of St. Louis, Missouri, transcending fear can also mean driving through North County, for example.
Some very dangerous roads out there. Yes. But,
so I can sense some people actually report to me, people I am close with, say, no, I never drive that way. I don't really. I stay in my lane. Here in St. Louis.
So then you need to challenge their faith, because either God is or God isn't. And if they believe that God is, then someone told me this once, a guy named Tom LaRotunda, who's a spiritual teacher in Denver. He said, just imagine this point A to point B. You're just going A to B. And you're safe no matter which road you take.
Yes.
If you believe in safety, if you believe that God's protecting you, if you believe, and this is where I take a little bit of my Christian beliefs and my New Thought, because New Thought can be a little bit impersonal.
Yes.
In terms of having like
an obscure.
Yeah, and then I don't really believe like God the Father, like the masculine God. I also believe in divine feminine, but I believe in a divine source of love.
Correct.
So if there's this divine source of love, and I'm in this bubble of divine source of love, then I believe I'm going to get there safely. And if I don't get there safely, then that was it. That was my time was up anyway. Like, there are people that have died through, like my mother, car crash, or other gun violence, or planes crashing, or whatever. You know what? I had to believe this. This is what I chose to believe. Their work on earth was done. No matter what their age, when they died, their work on earth was done. And there's a lesson for all of us to learn from that person's life, from how they died. And there's some authors that say we choose who we are born into, which I don't know if I really believe that, but maybe. And then we choose how we die. And, and maybe subconsciously we do. I don't know. I kind of feel in my mother's case that, she used to say, I don't want to live through a car crash. Why would she say that? I don't even understand why anyone would say that.
From a place of oneness, from a place of unconditional love, you mentioned, the masculine God and the divine feminine. To go one step further, and this is something I discussed with Reverend Celeste too, is that once you release the dichotomy of things, the duality of masculine and feminine, black and white, rich and poor, all that is left is the one spirit, right?
I love that.
Don't you agree? I mean, don't you feel it? Don't you see it? Yes, there are characteristics that are more predominant into the women world and the man world. I can agree. Right. I think God created us to...
God is genderless, yes.
Exactly.
The wind, I always say the wind is genderless. If you want to pray to the wind, that's great. God is genderless.
And he put us on earth not only to, of course, eat and reproduce, but also to tolerate our differences, right?
Yes.
And
embrace our differences.
Embrace our differences.
I like embrace rather than tolerate. Because tolerate, like you have felt different being from another culture, and I have felt often different being in a same-sex relationship.
Yes.
Which some people judge.
No, I don't at all.
So the thing is where were we on the gender?
Yeah, the gender, the duality, the dichotomy.
Duality. Yeah. So it's because I've never, for me, because I won't get in that whole discussion about attraction or gender or whatever, but I will say I'm attracted to someone's spirit and their soul, and it doesn't matter what suit, they show up as a male or they show up as a female,
or what happens in the bedroom.
Yeah, it's in the essence of who they are.
Yes,
right. It's in the essence of who they are.
Yes,
and there's something that can't be explained about what that is, and it's unfortunately for gay people, a lot of people think it's sexual, and it's not sexual at all. Trust me, it's not. So it's for me, it's we're spiritual beings having a human experience.
That's what Wayne Dyer used to say. I heard that from Dr. Dyer.
I love him.
Yes.
And the people that have fear about driving a certain way, or I've had people even say, well, because people in St. Charles County, oh, I don't want to cross the river, or people in St. Louis, they don't want to cross the river the other way and come up to St. Charles.
Mm-hmm.
And people stereotype people in these counties.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know what? There's beauty and a lot of wonderful things on wherever you live.
Yes.
And you can't stereotype people where they live.
Yes.
Or how they look.
Correct.
That
resonates. That's true. And yes, absolutely. I was going to say, the differences are just surface level.
Yeah.
You mentioned the essence of people as non-physical and goes beyond the masculine and the feminine. And it's a wonderful thing to see divine grace in everything and everyone. Dr. Hawkins, my teacher, used to
How did you get exposed to him?
Many circumstances, including, the hardship of divorce, financially, logistically. But he used to just cry in the presence of, a beautiful bouquet of flowers, or just like
he or you?
a box of Kleenex. Whatever is there, everything is God creation. Everything is an acknowledgement of something that is beyond yourself alone. And that was a beautiful realization or awakening moment. So I think it would be great for us to teach more of this non-duality teachings, transcending the illusion of separateness, number one, and being able to come from a place of cooperation rather than competition. Yeah. So, Brenda, thank you so much for the depth, generosity.
Oh, you've been so wonderful. I appreciate you. You are an agent of transformation.
Grazie.
And I really feel honored to have gotten to know you.
As we can see here, this is just like a very, very tiny sample of Brenda's work. What stays with me is how clearly your life and your art demonstrate that creativity is not just something that we do, but something we allow, right? Your work reminds us that healing and beauty does not come from denying what's being broken, but from honoring it, from listening deeply enough to let meaning, memory, and love reorganize themselves into wholeness. There's a quiet courage in that and a great tenderness. In Power versus Force, Dr. David Hawkins writes that true art arises not from effort or ego, but from surrender, from allowing higher states of consciousness to move through form. Art created in this way carries power not because it tries to persuade or impress, but because it irradiates truth. What I see in your mosaics is exactly that. Art that doesn't shout, perform, or convince, but gently transmits reverence and care. Each piece feels intentional, alive, and infused with meaning, a living expression of love, legacy, and spirit made visible. For those who feel drawn to Brenda's work, you can learn more at brendafraser.com. Well, you'll find her artwork, upcoming events, and information about her storytelling mosaics and memory mosaics. Brenda also welcomes donated vintage jewelry, whole or broken, which she transforms into art that supports scholarships for women returning to school through her Dream Uplifters work. For those discovering Yogaphora Conversations through this episode, I am Andrea Spadafora, owner of Yogaphora LLC. My work includes therapeutic massage, yoga, and long-form conversations with artists, wellness practitioners, and community leaders whose work is rooted in integrity, presence, and service. I can be reached at yogaphora@gmail.com or by phone 240-645-7786. And my practice is located inside Flex Time Fitness in Brentwood, Missouri. Thank you for sharing the space with us. May what you've heard here today remind you that even the broken pieces of a life, when met with intention, love, and presence, can become something whole, meaningful, and quietly powerful.
Oh, that's so beautifully written. Thank you so much.
Grazie, Brenda. Oh, big hug.
Big hug. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.